Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Thursday, October 10th. We are here live. We only have an hour. This will go fast, so I'm opening up the phone lines right now. Jump in and join us, 855-950-3835. It is a free-for-all. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. You can also hit that call now button on your app, and we will get to your calls here as soon as they start coming in. So pick up the phone and join me. I talked a little bit on Monday about the book Economics in One Lesson. And I haven't finished it yet, but I'm pretty close to the end, probably about 80% of the way through. And the interesting thing about it, in the beginning, the title really confused me. Like, how can you possibly explain economics in just one lesson? But it's kind of a play on words. They use one lesson, the same lesson, to explain lots of different things about economics. But it all does come back to the same issues about why we get so much of this wrong. And I really think what it comes down to is that we get this wrong. We don't really get it wrong. We get it right for certain people who will benefit from the fact that we break some of these economic rules, and we all suffer for that, but some people benefit from it. And if the right people can benefit from it and they're in power in the government, then that becomes the problem. And we've actually referred to that for years as crony capitalism. One of the things I hear all the time, and I just saw the whole broker transparency thing is coming up again. It looks like the FMCSA may make a decision on this. We'll see. OIDA and some other groups are asking for an automatic delivery of the original freight bills with pricing on there immediately after the load is pulled. So it's kind of odd. You're not going to get to know what the broker's making up front. You're only going to get to see it after the fact. And those rules are already in place, just they're never enforced and brokers aren't going to follow them. But they would have to if this ruling passes. I think people should just be very careful what they wish for. I even saw a number in this article that, and I think they're confusing several issues when they say this, because they're talking about broker transparency, and all we're talking about there is, will the broker divulge what they made on the load? But then they said freight fraud is costing the industry $800 million a year. Well, wait a minute. Those are two different issues. There isn't any freight fraud because a broker doesn't disclose the rate they make. Brokers have not done that forever. And even though the law is there, there's nobody to enforce it. So now they want this to just be automatic, that it has to be done. But it's after the fact. The whole thing just doesn't make any sense to me and will make things worse. I wish more people could understand the economics in this book. It's actually, economics is a really complicated topic, but this helps simplify a lot of things. And the premise of the book is that the one lesson we just seem to ignore in economics is we will only look at the immediate results on one specific group. When we talk about any economic policy, one of the economic policies that they cover in there that I've talked about for years, minimum wage laws. I don't think there should be any minimum wage laws. I think as a free human being, you should be allowed to work for whatever you decide you want to work for. And I don't think there should be a minimum. And I think minimums cause problems. And in this book, they explain why, just like they explain every other economic lesson with this premise that makes sense. And it really almost always comes back to some sort of government spending or government regulation that is messing with the free market. And one group is usually benefited for a short period of time, and then we use that as the justification. So we say, look, it's just not fair. If you don't have a minimum wage for workers, people will be taken advantage of. Well, no, they won't. Not in a free market, they won't. And how many people... This would be an interesting topic to ask today. If you're calling today and you want to answer this question, if you're as old as I am, you may not be able to. No, I can remember. I worked a minimum wage job for about 6 months. My first job, and I was only 14, my first job paid minimum wage. If I remember right, it was like $2.65 an hour, maybe $2.35. I don't remember. It wasn't a lot. But I didn't make that minimum wage for long because I got a raise. And as soon as I got a raise, I wasn't being paid minimum wage anymore. Had there been no minimum wage laws, I don't think anything would have happened much different. They would have started me at about the average wage, because that's how free markets work. They'll work out their own numbers. And then when I proved I was worth more than that number, I got a raise. And I think that was the last time I ever worked minimum wage. It was just that first 6 months or so, I was in a job. And my next job started at higher than minimum wage, and that was just packing groceries. And then after that, I started working for myself, and I've kind of ignored minimum wage ever since. Yes, somebody benefits from the minimum wage. Somebody got paid more than they should have gotten paid is really what it comes down to. And that every dollar that somebody gets that they didn't really earn is a dollar that comes from all of the rest of us. And that's really what our government has become, just a way to redistribute all of the wealth. With rules and regulations and taxes, it's just it's become a big money laundering scheme that just redistributes the money, but it's based on a whim and some politician who managed to get a law passed. It's not good economics. Every time the government pays for anything, that is all coming from us, it will almost always benefit a group, there's no doubt, but it's not good economics. Here's the thing, the overall, and I'm going to get to the calls because they're starting to come in. The overall lesson in this book really fits very well with what I do. It fits really well with the show and what we've always talked about and what I've taught people. The only way to create more wealth, and we're talking overall to create more wealth, the only way to do that is to produce something. And the more efficiently you can produce it, the more wealthy we can all become. And I absolutely believe in that. And if we think about freight and what we talk about, just the big one, fuel mileage, when we are inefficient with fuel, the only real beneficiary of that is the fuel distribution system. The oil companies and the truck stops benefit from high fuel prices. Almost nobody else does, though. And if we're wasting it, that's kind of the point of the whole book, really, if you understand the lessons. And they cover lots of different topics: minimum wage laws, price controls, rent controls, government spending, tariffs. The tariff chapter was a little hard to get through, but I think I understand tariffs better now. The other thing about the book, if you're going to read it, they really focus on this one topic of anything other than being more efficient at production is wasting money, and it's usually only going to benefit one group. They're not trying to cover every aspect of everything they talked about. Like tariffs, for example, have a political purpose. Now, then you could get off and argue about, are they effective? Does that work? Are there downsides? But that's not what this book is about. You could use a tariff to punish a company because you don't like their economic policies. For example, what I would talk about, and I think tariffs are needed in a case like this, when you have a country where the government will subsidize an industry so that they can then sell their products in our country cheaper than it costs to make them, because the government is subsidizing those products. That's just, we can't have that. We can't have companies like China dumping things in our country for less than they can be made for. That's where a tariff might be used. When it happens, there is a downside to tariffs, and that's what the book explains. Every time we penalize another country, that's less money they have to buy our products. And that's what the book keeps coming back to. The only way to generate wealth is to produce and sell products or services. And the more efficiently you can do that, the more wealth you can generate. Government never generates any revenue. It just moves it around. So I'll be talking more about the book. When I finish it, I'm going to sit down and try to get my thoughts kind of in order, because there's a lot to unpack in this book. But I love the fact that to build a really good economy, you should do what we do here on the show all the time. That's really kind of the lesson of the book. All right, let's get to the calls. It is a free-for-all. You can talk about whatever you want. We're going to get started in Ohio. Jesus, welcome.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind today?
I just got a question about the, what is it, PPI kit?
Yeah.
The stomach? Yeah. So, you know, since I don't really take medication a lot, even though that's not a medication, but I'm really bad at taking it.
Okay.
So this week I forgot it at home, and I have a little discomfort on as far as heartburn and stuff like that. Not like getting heartburn.
Okay.
But I'm not even halfway into the kit yet. So should I just finish the kit? Because I'm on my way home. So I was thinking either stop taking it or just finish it.
Well, it's a good sign that you're already seeing improvements. That tells us that your problem wasn't a really big, deep problem. Some people that have been on PPIs for 20 or 25 years, we've had to go through 2 and 3 kits, and it takes months sometimes to get their stomach acid rebuilt. You're already seeing signs that your stomach acid is strengthening, and you'll be fine. Since you have the kit, I would just finish it. But I think it's a good sign that this isn't going to be a big problem.
Okay, because, it says on the protocol, it says that take it, like try to minimize the intake of your medication for 2 weeks. Well, unfortunately, I ran out of medication because the pharmacy that what I used to get it from, they went out of business, and they're supposed to send a prescription to a different pharmacy, and they never did. So I didn't want to call the doctor to get the prescription because they're going to want to see me and then just get more money out of me and all that. So I said, what, I'm not going to do it.
Here's the reason we say that. I'm going to go back again to the people that have been on PPIs for 20, 25, 30 years sometimes. If they drop all their medication too quickly, they will really suffer with massive amounts of heartburn. So we just warn people against that. And that's why we have a kit and a protocol and instructions. The instructions are really for the worst cases. Yours is so mild.
Okay.
If you were starting to get really bad heartburn, then we would go back to the protocol and say, wait a minute, you got to kind of wean yourself off this medication. You went cold turkey because you didn't have it, but you're not having any symptoms. And if you are, they're mild. So I wouldn't go back on any kind of medication.
Yeah, no, I don't want to go back. But there's another thing. I don't have the protocol in front of me, but there's one that says a challenge. Stop taking one of the, I believe is the capsules.
Right.
So if I continue to take it, should I not take that one, or should I just take the whole thing?
do everything that's in the kit and the protocol. Just do it till the kit's done.
Okay, I'm gonna do that then, and then I'm not gonna try the challenge that it says there. But it says if you get heartburn again, then they go back to them. But
Right.
I'm just gonna take the whole thing until it's done. And
Yep.
looks like it's probably mostly gone. So
Excellent.
I'm really glad. And thanks,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks for the call. Yeah, heartburn. Like I said, we've had some really, really tough cases when people have been on PPIs for way too long. And you're not supposed to be on PPIs for long periods of time, but doctors do it all the time. Sometimes we struggle to get somebody off of those. Sometimes it looks like this one will be a pretty simple case. All right, phone lines are open. Jump in and join us. 855-950-3835. We're going to head north of the border to Alberta this time. Merv, welcome to the program.
Hi, Kevin.
What can I help you with today?
On your issue about the minimum wage, I believe you probably would have got a bigger raise after 6 months if it wouldn't have been for minimum wage.
That's a good point, and you are correct, because what happens in jobs like that, and I can tell you there were some people, and I may be biased, but there were some people who did not work nearly as hard as I did. They weren't as efficient as I was, and they just weren't as conscientious. They just didn't care that much. And what happens then, you are correct, I was subsidizing them. They were not earning minimum wage. You know, I always say that I'm not very good at quotes, but I have a couple that I think were pretty good, and there's one I have about minimum wage. And my premise, in a free market where an employer can pay anything they want, and we'll ignore minimum wage for a second, they can pay as much or as little as they want. And there's lots of employers I can go to and choose from. I've always said, in a free market, you will get paid exactly what you're worth. Now, some people get all freaked out about that because they think I'm talking about their worth as a human being. This has nothing to do with that. It's your worth on the job. How much value do you bring to this job? And in a free market, you're going to get paid pretty well equal to the value you bring to the market, unless you're getting minimum wage, and then it's possible you're being overpaid. And people freak out about that. Oh, you can't even live on this. No, you're not supposed to be able to live on it. That's not how this was ever designed. And there are some people that do live on it, but it wasn't designed. Like I said, I made minimum wage for about 6 months. That's probably the norm for most people. They probably did not work a minimum wage job for years and years and years. But there are people making minimum wage who I believe are just overpaid. And you're right. And that's what this book is about. For every dollar they gave those minimum wage workers that weren't earning it, they had to take that dollar away from my raise. And you're right. They probably would have paid me more.
Yeah, I missed the name of that book. Can you rattle that off again?
Yeah, it's called Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. It's interesting. The original version of the book was written in 1946. And the version I just read was updated in like 1977. So it's interesting that the lessons that he talks about and the cases he talks about are as old as I am and older, but it doesn't change anything. Economics are economics. They haven't changed.
That's right, yeah. Okay, I'll have to look that one up. The other thing I phoned about today was wheel bearings on my trailer. So I had some inside tire wear on this trailer when I bought it, used trailer. And so I reset all the wheel bearings, put the Pro Torque nuts on. And when I torqued them, the procedure is that you torque them to 90 pounds, and then if you can't get your clip on, you got to torque them a little bit more just to get to the next notch in the clip, right? Well, I did that, and I'm finding that they're too tight. Like they just get too hot.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there's something I missed there. One thing I thought about is assume they're sleeveless. But is it possible that they could have sleeves in it?
So one of the problems
it's the
here
Henderson suspension on a 2017 Rettenauer trailer.
Yeah, one of the problems here, and this may be a much better call for Mike and Kevin when they get here later today. They'll remember all the details because they've lived this their whole career. For me, the wheel bearing thing comes and goes. I never dealt with wheel bearings all that much when I owned trucks. Not till the very end when I started realizing that there is some fuel savings potential there if you get them set properly. And we would go through this over and over and over. And I learned most of what I know about wheel bearings from Mike Beckett. He has his own procedures that are usually slightly different from maybe what's being talked about. But one of the reasons I kind of have forgot a lot of this wheel bearing information is because my new recommendation is find somebody with a Dr. Preload and let them do it. The tool.
So that's that Dr. Preload that you talked about?
Right.
I don't understand what that is.
It is
maybe you can
tool and a method for setting wheel bearings that is extremely accurate. More accurate than any other method I've ever seen. And a lot of people now are promoting the Dr. Preload as the way to go. A lot of times you'll find people that do MD alignment also may have the Dr. Preload tool.
All right. Is that a tool that I could possibly purchase myself?
You know, somebody will... Matt, or if Matt's listening, he'll probably, if I remember right, if you own a couple trucks and trailers and you do some of your own work, I don't think the tool is that expensive. I think for an owner-operator or a small fleet, I think you might be able to justify the cost. I just don't remember what it was. But I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Okay. And I can use that with the Pro-Torque nuts?
Yeah, now we're getting into the details. Like I said, that would be that would be a better. I don't remember a lot of those details because it seems like every time we got a call about a wheel bearing, something was different. Oh no, you have this, and you should do it like this. And I used to know that stuff kind of inside and out. We hardly ever talk about it anymore. You're probably the first wheel bearing call I've had in 2 years. Oh, we lost the call. Merv just dropped out of the ether there. All right, Merv, like I said, call back today, or I'll ask Mike and Kevin right at the beginning. Maybe we'll talk about it if I remember. They'll be able to give you the answers on the details. Let's go to Ohio. Scott, welcome.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks for taking my call. I had my physical 2 weeks ago, and I just got around. I've got my numbers. I'd like to go through them to see what you think.
Yeah, let's do that.
My A1C was 5.7. Cholesterol was 167.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Let's go back. You broke up a little bit in my headset. Start over.
Okay, my A5.7.
Okay.
Cholesterol 161.
Is that total?
Yeah.
Okay.
LDL 97, and the triglycerides is 138. Cholesterol triglycerides, and then non-HDL something or other is 125.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
doctor was happy.
Your cholesterol numbers, not just the fact that they're low. I do think it's low, and low is not good. Your numbers are skewed, too. They're not ideal. Your HDL is low, and we want HDL high. Your LDL I can kind of ignore, and your triglycerides are high. So the number we really like to look at is a triglycerides to HDL ratio. And yours is not off the charts, but it's not ideal. We'd like to see HDL up in that 60 to 70 range. Triglycerides maybe down under 100, then your ratio looks a lot better, even if you get much higher cholesterol. So I'm in the 260 range, you're in the 160 range, but my numbers are much better. My HDL is high, my triglycerides are low, My LDL is the big, large, fluffy type. And other than that, I just ignore mine. So tell me about your diet.
Carnivore. Try to throw all of my diet.
I could have predicted that from these numbers. This is what they've done to us with our food supply and their recommendations, and we end up with low cholesterol but unbalanced numbers. It's bad in both ways. We don't want low total cholesterol. We just don't. And then on top of that, even though it's low, like they wanted you to get it, you got yours nice and low, but the numbers are still skewed. Your HDL is low and your triglycerides are high. That is a result of the standard American diet. I see it over and over and over. When you switch to a good whole food animal-based diet, keto, carnivore, ketovore, somewhere in there, your HDL will go up and your triglycerides will go down. And if we looked at your LDL, it would improve as well. It happens every time. And you will probably end up with a total cholesterol number up above 220, 230 or so, where it should be.
Okay. So I get into this keto carnivore diet thing. Will throw all the processed crap out and eat mainly meat. Few light carbs, low carb
Sure.
diet, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. I can get that.
So one other quick question. How old are you?
67.
I will say this. Your A1C for being on the standard American diet at 67 years old is good. Really, I'm not worried about your A1C. It will improve, and you don't even need for it to improve that much. At 5.7 at your age, that's a really good sign that you don't have a big metabolic problem here. And when you switch, you're going to be pretty amazed at the results. But the good news is your A1C is not bad at all for your age and how you've been eating.
That was my concern. My grandmother was diabetic, so about that. But
Well, hold on, Scott.
Go ahead. Yes.
If your dog were diabetic, would that worry you?
No.
Why does it worry you that your grandmother was diabetic? There's nothing about diabetes that is genetic. Nothing.
Genetic, but
It's not.
Okay.
Nothing about diabetes is genetic.
Okay. Well, they aren't going to make that crap because I totally taken anything. So.
Here's what I could probably predict. If you kept eating the way you were eating and you managed to live to, say, 75, you would probably end up diabetic as well. But at that point, I don't want to say I wouldn't be as worried about it, but the fact that you made it this long on the standard American diet without being diabetic, and you're kind of bumping up against the bottom range of it now, it's a good sign. And if you start eating the way you're going to eat, this becomes a total non-issue for you. Your metabolic numbers will all improve, and the cholesterol will come up and it will be what it needs to be.
Another thing, I don't have a gallbladder.
All you need to do, I wish you had your gallbladder, but we can work around it.
Yeah.
You should take bile salts every time you eat, and that will be for the rest of your life.
Okay. And you got that in your store, correct?
Yeah. It's called the product is called Beta Plus.
Okay. Well, I do have some trouble when I eat a lot of greasy food. Sometimes it doesn't stay in for very long.
Because your body isn't digesting it. Without the gallbladder being there to inject the right amount of bile, you're not going to digest really fatty meals. That's why you will always need to take bile salts when you eat. You're missing a function. The gallbladder was there for a reason, and that function is gone.
The way I understand it,
probably was. Well, here's the quick explanation of why our gallbladders became such a problem. You're close to my age. When you were a kid, do you remember anybody talking about fat as though it was going to kill you?
No,
No, that started in kind
no.
of the 80s, late 70s, early
Yeah.
80s. They really started pushing low-fat everything. They took the fat out of dairy. They took the fat out of everything. And unfortunately, when you take fat out of food, it tastes like cardboard. It's awful. Nobody wants to eat it. The thing you can do to get around that is you can replace the fat with sugar. Sugar does a lot of the same things that fat does in our food. It enhances flavor, just like salt does. Sugar enhances flavor. Fat enhances flavor. Fat gives us a certain mouthfeel that we like and crave. Sugar can kind of mimic that mouthfeel a little bit. But we replaced all of our fat with sugar. Well, if you're not eating enough fat and your gallbladder isn't working, what happens to most parts when they just sit there not doing anything? They deteriorate.
Start to fail.
Yeah, they fail. They deteriorate. Our body wants to be used. Our brain wants to be used. The more we use our brain, the stronger it gets. The more we use our heart, the stronger it gets. The more we use our gallbladder, the better and stronger it will function. When we got rid of all the fat and our gallbladder's sitting around saying, what are we going to do now? Well, the bile tends to sit in the gallbladder because it's not being used, and that's when it starts to create stones. And when it creates stones, then you're going to get infections. And then they say, oh, look, your gallbladder's all infected. We have to yank it out. Well, no, you don't. We probably could have fixed it. But once it's gone, it's gone. The good news is at least there is a way to make up for that missing organ with the supplement.
Picked up.
Excellent.
We'll go from there. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Advice.
You're welcome. Call me back. Let me know how things are going. I love hearing the reviews and the results. Let's go to Indiana. Mick, welcome.
Hey, Kevin. You had mentioned a while back about a device you were using to basically get your internet providers to overlap each other so that you didn't lose service. As long as one of them had good service, it would pick up the slack that the other one was deficient on. What is that device? I'm trying to figure something out here. I'm running a Starlink in my truck, and if I could get it to mesh with my wireless, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so there are a couple companies that make devices like this. The website that I really like for these kind of products is called Mobile Must Have. So mobilemusthave.com, just like it sounds. Just spell those three words just like you normally would. It's a company that just put together a lot of really cool products for people who travel a lot on the roads, mostly RVs. Trucks fit really well. They do things like cell phone boosters, surge protectors, water filters, but they're really big into internet connectivity on the road. So they have lots of options. I'm actually drawing a blank on the company that makes the router that I have right now. Hold on here we go, mobile routers. So their service starts with a router. And it's the router that allows you to mesh multiple different types of connections. So the router is going to have a cellular, at least one, and sometimes two or up to four ports to put in SIM cards. So if you want to go all cellular, you could get an AT&T card, a Verizon card, a T-Mobile card, SIM cards, and install them in this router. And then there's different ways of setting it up for priority in that. But it's the router that does this. Now, the cool thing today is Starlink looks more like a home internet connection. It's not a cellular connection. It's more like a home internet connection. So the really nice PepLink is the company, PepLink routers. And you've got some options, and it comes down to price. They start with, I think I have what's called the Max Transit Duo Pro. That's the model that I have. Now that one, just so you know, that one's $1,000. They have some less expensive options where maybe you don't want 4 different connections. You'd be happy with 2. Then, you can, some of their, I see there, here's a mini mobile for $400. That may turn out to be a better option for you. You may only want Starlink and one cellular connection. So you might be able to get away.
Yeah, that'd be fine for me.
Yeah, I think that's their $400 router, their mini PepLink Max. Then they have plans now. I mean, I just switched. I haven't even had time to go back and set mine up yet, and I switched like 3 weeks ago. I just have been really busy. Now they have this service where you don't even have to have a physical SIM card. They have a service called an eSIM. So the way that one would work is you would use your Starlink as your initial connection to the internet. So to make this eSIM thing work, you have to have a different connection to the internet. Now, it could be an AT&T SIM card or a Verizon SIM card, or it could be your Starlink. Then you can add this service where you get, I think I'm getting 4 different cellular providers, even though I don't have any SIM cards.
Wow.
So my Starlink connects to the internet. The internet connects to this service that must have a whole bunch of SIM cards running there. And it chooses which one of the cellular connections is best at the moment, and then bonds that to your Starlink. And if as the conditions change, it might roll from an AT&T SIM card to a Verizon SIM card to a T-Mobile SIM card, and you don't have any of them.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool setup. So right now, I do have physical SIM cards in my router. I have an AT&T card, a Verizon card, and my Starlink. But once I've got it all ordered, like I said, I haven't sit down to set it up. I'm going to take the 2 physical SIM cards out, and then I'll set up this eSIM service, and then I'll have Starlink and 4 different cellular connections wherever I go.
Awesome. Good. Perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for.
All right.
Another question, totally different subject.
Sure.
ADD. I'm pretty sure I've got ADD. Haven't realized it till just kind of recently, but I can't read a book and stay focused to save my life. I can sit here and listen to your show and stay focused the whole time. But when it comes to reading a book or even listen to an audio book, I can't stay focused for anything. Wondering if you have any suggestions for something like that. I'm pretty strict on keto, carnivore. I do the Mind Fuel every morning. What are some thoughts on that?
You might be surprised. I have ADD as well. I kind of consider it a superpower. We've turned something completely natural into something bad that we have to medicate kids for. It's mostly kids, but, adults, I know a lot of adults that medicate for it as well. And look, one of the medications for ADD is caffeine. Caffeine helps me focus for longer periods. Nicotine would do the same thing.
Okay.
Here's something else that helps me a lot: ketones. The more ketones I produce, the longer I can stay focused on something. But do you know people who are they just seem to be naturally good at something? Like some people are just so in tune with music. I was talking about this the other day. I love music. It's like 6 foreign languages to me. Music just doesn't, as much as I love it, I don't think musically. And some people are just so natural at it. Some people are just really good at math, right? I'm pretty good at math. I can do quite a bit of math in my head. All I'm trying to explain is that all of our brains work slightly differently. Some people, we've all heard that we all learn differently. Some people are visual learners. Some people, I learn best by reading. I learn second best by listening. And third by watching if I need to. It's why I don't do a lot of videos. I don't even want to listen to podcasts. Give me the transcript and let me read it. There's two things there. I think in some ways my brain was wired slightly different, so reading was easy for me. But here's something else. Do we get better at things we do a lot of?
Yep.
So I totally suck at music. I couldn't play 3 notes if somebody put a gun to my head. But if I actually sit down and started practicing it, I would get better. Even though my brain may not be wired for it, I'm never going to be a, concert pianist. But I could learn how to play music and enjoy it, and the more I did it, the better I would get. Well, of course, my reading comprehension is really good, and so is my reading speed, but I've read 2 books a week for most of my life. So I don't think ADD is a problem. I think it's just some of us are wired different, and we don't like to be overloaded with a whole lot of information at one time. I've learned that when I notice my concentration is fading, I stop and go do something else, and I'll come back to it later. I can also tell you this, that when I am metabolically not as healthy, like I'm, too stressed or I'm working too hard, my diet is slipping a little bit, my concentration goes to hell. I can't focus on a book. I can't focus on much of anything. I believe that some of it is a brain energy issue. And the healthier we're eating, the more good fats we're eating, the more ketones we're producing, we will be able to concentrate better. When you feel really good physically, are you able to do more physical work? On those days where you wake up and you just feel good, right? Are you able to do more work? And then there's some days where, man, your body's just dragging. You don't want to walk up one more flight of stairs. Well, our brain's the same way.
Right.
Our brain, it's not physically different from our body. We've treated the brain issues so differently, and they're not. It's an energy issue. So the more energy we can get to our brain, the longer we'll be able to focus. But also, being able to focus is something we need to practice.
Right. Okay, well, maybe a cup of coffee and some mind fuel before I go to read a book, huh?
Absolutely. No doubt.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm guessing the answer to medication is a hell no.
Not no, but hell no. Now, here's something I will tell you.
Right.
And I've been totally transparent about my drug use over my lifetime. I've experimented with almost everything. And I'll tell people what I've taken, what I haven't. I've done a lot of experiments with the ADD drugs, Ritalin, Adderall, cocaine, any stimulant. That's why I said caffeine and nicotine. Any stimulant helps people with ADD think and focus better. It's something as mild as caffeine all the way up to something as, crazy as meth. Stimulants help our brain focus longer. So the mild stimulants, caffeine, and now nicotine has kind of become a big thing with the nicotine pouches. I don't even want to go down that road. I know nicotine can enhance your performance, but it can be pretty addictive and destructive too. But stimulants.
Well, let me stop you real quick on that.
Sure.
On the nicotine, I don't have an addictive personality. I can pick up something like smoke cigars and then leave it be and never touch it again. So the nicotine pouches.
Yeah.
Are you?
Am I? What?
You are okay. Are you against the nicotine pouches if I don't have an addictive personality?
No, I'm not. And I don't worry about I really don't have an addictive personality either. That's why I've been able to experiment with all kinds of drugs over my life and never really worry about becoming addicted to them. What I do worry about is, and this is more of a mental thing, becoming addicted to the results. And that kind of happened when I was experimenting with Adderall. My brain is like a supercomputer on a stimulant like Adderall or Ritalin. Holy cow. You talk about being able to focus and my brain working really well. It does. Adderall specifically. Ritalin was pretty good. Adderall was even better. But I didn't do it for long because I realized, look, I'm not going to quit doing this. I will just keep doing this every day because I like the results. And I just don't believe that that level, that's a pharmaceutical. That worries me. We take things and we highly concentrate them. That's when they become a problem. Lots of societies in South America have used cocaine for centuries the way we use coffee. They will just chew on the coca leaves. It's not concentrated. It's not processed into cocaine or crack or, we took cocaine and we processed it even farther to crack and we got more problems. The more you concentrate these things, the worse they become. If we stick to them in their natural state, they're usually not overly addictive and they're not causing a lot of problems. A little bit of caffeine every day, there are some health benefits to it. There are some health benefits to a little bit of nicotine every day. My fear is that I would just use more and more because I would like the results. So I'm pretty happy with the caffeine, the Mind Fuel. I know how to get myself in a place where I can concentrate and focus, and that's enough for me. So I really don't want to mess with the nicotine. But if you want to try, give it a try. Zyn, by the way, is the company that I see everywhere that everybody does the Zyn pouches. And they come in different strengths. From what I understand, start with the smallest. Don't try to be a super.
Oh yeah,
I've heard some
I played with them, and I can put one of those Zyns in my mouth, and I'll feel like I put a big dip of Copenhagen, and I'm literally stumbling.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
but now there's certain brands like the Rogue. I can do those just fine. So, I mean, I haven't done them in a while. I thought maybe they'd be bad for you, so I kind of left off of them. But if I got to read a book, I might look into using it again.
Here's another problem I have with these products. Like almost everything else, all these companies care about are results, and that's because all people seem to care about are the results. I've looked at several different flavors of Zyn. I don't know what else to call them. They flavor this stuff. Some of them, the ingredients are horrendous. There's no way I would use some of these products. And it's not because of the nicotine I'm worried about. It's all the other crap they put in there. I would treat
and it seems like they get away with not listing their ingredients. A lot of the stuff that they're putting out there, they don't list their ingredients. They won't tell you.
That's another problem too. So, and that's another reason I kind of state, I know what coffee is. Coffee's coffee. And I can buy coffee that's just a coffee bean. Nothing is put in it whatsoever. I happen to like my coffee with mushrooms in it, but I know the ingredients. It's coffee and mushrooms. There's nothing else in there. These pouches, these nicotine pouches, I have seen, like, some of them are just a chemical shitstorm, and nobody seems to care.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was worried about. And what about memory? Does it kind of fall in the same boat as
yeah,
like the
ADD? And when we understand how memory works, it makes total sense. In order for memory to work, we expose ourselves to an idea, let's just say during the day. We need to do something that commits that to short-term memory first. How many times do you go through the day, your mind's on something? And this happens to me when I read. Let's talk about reading. There are times where I will go through 4, 5, 6, 7 pages of reading and instantly not remember anything I just read. Have you ever had that happen?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I have to go back 7 pages and read it again because I have no idea what I just read because my mind was on something else. So it didn't even get committed to short-term memory. Well, there's no way it's going to be converted to long-term. So we have to do something to commit what we just learned to short-term memory. Think about it, whatever. It doesn't take a lot to get it to short-term memory. Then what we need is a good night's sleep, and our brain will convert that to a long-term memory. Now, none of those functions are going to happen very well if we're low on energy. So it comes back to
Right.
metabolic health and energy again. If our brain has the energy it needs to perform all of these functions, and you're mindful, that's kind of what we need to be when we're learning something, is mindful. We don't want to be thinking about other things while we're trying to learn this thing. So we be mindful, we commit it to short-term memory, then we need a good night's sleep and it will convert to long-term memory.
Okie doke. Well, cool. Good information, man. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. And I got into that call and didn't realize that I got to get moving here. Let's go to Indiana. Dawn, welcome.
Hi, Kevin. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. What's on your mind?
Well, if I could just contribute a little nugget to the last caller, Nick in Indiana.
Sure.
I am a dentist, and I just want to say that a lot of people don't realize that those nicotine pouches, nicotine is a vasoconstrictor. When it constricts the blood vessels, it can also cause some recession of the gums.
Oh, I'll bet.
So, you know,
Yeah.
So just whatever, but I wanted to throw that in.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's a good point.
So on to my question. I have been
Oh,
not
hey, Dawn,
sleeping well
let's
for
go.
many minutes.
Let's go back a second.
Okay.
What you just described, one of the things that nicotine does, would raise our blood pressure, correct?
Yes.
When you constrict the blood flow, you raise blood pressure. When we consume Cardio
Correct.
Miracle and our body starts producing nitric oxide, that relaxes our veins and arteries and lowers our blood pressure. So if anybody's thinking about experimenting with nicotine, if you have any issues with high blood pressure, don't do it. It's just going to get worse.
Right.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So for many, many years, I have not been sleeping well. And I've tried what I consider to be literally everything under the sun.
Welcome to the club.
Well, recently, when I had some blood work done by a nurse practitioner who does my hormone balancing, she said, your fasting glucose level is 103, and that's high. And I said, I wonder if that could be contributing to my sleep problem. She goes, well, maybe. And I said, would you consider prescribing me a glucose monitor? And she said, sure. So I've done that now for the past 6 or 7 weeks, and I went strict carnivore.
Okay.
And I started not feeling well at all, like no energy, and what's been happening since I did that was my glucose was bottoming out into the 50s at night.
Okay.
So since then, I started reading Casey Means' Good Energy book.
All right.
And I'm about halfway through that right now. And what I learned was what I possibly have been experiencing is a rebound reaction from, the swings.
We actually refer to it as reactive hypoglycemia.
Okay, so my husband and I got on your website and I ordered the hypoglycemic kit, but then I started wondering, maybe that's not what I should be doing, because since then I've added some carbs in the form of vegetables, not the kind that grow underground,
Okay.
into my diet. And at night, my glucose has been more stable. It's not been
Good.
taking those dives.
Yep. Good.
So I have not started using the hypoglycemic kit, and I just need some guidance as to sort of where to go from here. And my fasting glucose level is still above 100.
So the fasting glucose is going to get a little odd. I actually consider your fasting glucose, it's what I would have predicted. Almost everybody who eats very low carb ends up with a fasting glucose number that tends to stay between about 90 and 110. And it freaks doctors out because to them, if you go over that number, you are now pre-diabetic. But they're only looking at an average, or we're looking at a fasting. We're not looking at a total or an average. Now, I could look at and any doctor should be able to look at your numbers from your monitor and tell you whether you have. Here's what I'm going to predict, and this is so common. You, in my opinion, you're probably diabetic. or you were very, very close to it. So what happens is we can go decades of eating all these carbohydrates and our blood sugar stays pretty darn normal until it doesn't. And that's when we have now developed insulin resistance. Prior to having insulin resistance, you can eat all kinds of crap and your blood sugar is normal because your body releases enough insulin and your cells react to it. But at some point, we become tolerant to all of that insulin and our cells stop reacting. And that's when all of a sudden our blood sugar numbers are just all over the place. That is reactive hypoglycemia, and it is the next sign that you're on your way to being diabetic if you're not already there. The longer you go on carnivore, the more this is going to work itself out.
Okay, that's what I needed to hear.
Yeah, it always does.
So,
Your A1C will get better. Now, the one number that's not going to get better, and it's going to confuse your doctors, is your fasting glucose will probably stay between 90 and 110. Mine's been there for years.
Okay.
Now, there's a couple things you can do. You've already done one. You can actually add some carbs back in, usually in the evening. If you eat the carbs in the evening, they tend to be more effective. That's one of the things you can do. The other one is try to keep your last meal as far away from you going to bed as possible. So like if you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, if you could stop eating at 6, your number will go down. Your morning number will go down. And I'm not too worried about it.
Okay.
Because we're not doing any damage until we start spending a lot of time over 140. And that just doesn't happen. When people are eating low carb, I could probably predict your pattern. You wake up in the 90 to 110 range. Throughout the rest of the day, it goes down.
Well, it depends.
Okay. On what you eat.
Yes, it does go down. Right. But even if I don't eat any carbs, like even the element salt that I've been adding to my water, it spikes it some.
So here's what
I don't know what's in that.
No, so I know you're reacting to food, and that's why we wear these monitors so we can see the reactions. What you're really reacting to is stress. When you see spikes in your blood sugar and food wasn't involved, salt should not raise your blood sugar in any way, other than the stress.
What about Cardio Miracle?
Cardio Miracle can raise your blood sugar if you're insulin resistant, and you are. And it's because when our body senses sweetness, it will raise our blood sugar.
You talked about that the other day, even thinking about it.
Right.
Could possibly do that. Yeah.
So when somebody has good insulin response, we don't see any of these things. When they lose that insulin response and they become insulin resistant, then all of a sudden everything starts affecting your blood sugar. Too much protein, I've talked about. Too much protein will keep somebody diabetic.
Yep, I've noticed that.
Yeah. That's why we go to when diabetes and metabolic syndrome is the issue. I am still a big believer in keto is our best bet. Now, we can make carnivore keto. I mean, basically it is. We can make it more keto by focusing more on the fat and not so much the protein.
What am I supposed to eat?
Fatty meat. Fatty meat and eggs. Fatty meat, fish, and eggs.
Fatty meat and eggs. Yeah, that's what I've been eating. Okay.
Then just keep eating it, and this will get better and better over time.
Okay.
And since you already bought the kit, go ahead and take it. It will help too.
Oh, okay. I'll do it.
Yep. The kit is just a lot of nutrients that help your body process sugars and carbohydrates.
Okay. It's crazy. Since reading Casey Means' book, I've had 2 miscarriages, PCOS. Looking back, I've been insulin resistant most of my life.
Yep. That's exactly what's going on. And it's not unusual. Almost everybody today, and the younger you are, the worse off you're going to be. Because our food supply gets worse every year.
I guess I got that going for me.
Yeah. But
Okay.
just keep doing what you're doing. And every time you call me, everything's going to be better. I promise.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. Have a great day.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon. Call me back. All right. We're going to have a little fun here. I'm going to bring in Mike and Kevin because I'm 3 minutes late. And we're also together. Hey, guys, good morning.
Good morning.
Since,
Unfortunately, Mike is still wandering around the office trying to help a caller
Got
with
it.
an issue.
okay, well, this will work then.
Oh, he's here.
Okay, he's here. We do have one call because I wasn't paying attention and I went long on a call. So we're going to do something fun. Mike, pick a number between 1 and 10.
4.
Kevin, pick a number between 1 and 10.
2.
Okay, I knew the number, so I win. Mike. So we're going to bring in Jeremy. Jeremy has a question, and Mike, you're going to answer it first, and Kevin, you're going to answer it second, and then I'm going to answer it third. How's that sound?
Okay, I'm going to give a preemptive answer.
Oh, good. I like that.
It's either 4 3/4 or no.
Got it. All right.
All right, let's hear it.
Let's try this. Jeremy, welcome.
Yeah.
All right, you get to ask
Thank
Mike
you.
first.
Started. Okay. Do you think plants enjoy like music?
4 3/4. Mike,
4 3/4.
you broke your rule.
Okay, the answer is 4 3/4.
A safe answer.
It is, yeah.
Sounds like.
So, all
It
right,
sounds like a
A
politician.
Chicago song.
It's a politician's answer.
there you go. All right, Kevin, you're up next. Do plants like music?
I'll bet they like certain music.
Okay. Do you have what music do you think plants like?
If I had to guess, oh man,
Heavy metal.
I don't know, classic.
Classic.
Going with the
classics.
standby.
So I'm not far off. I'm going to say plants do like music as long as it's classic rock or Yanni.
Okay.
All right.
Jeremy, does that help?
Hold on.
Hold on.
He's
Oh, there we are. There
he's
we are.
asking his plants.
I almost lost you.
Oh, I thought you were going to go ask
What
your
kind of
plants. I said plants like music as long as it's classic rock or Yanni.
Okay. Well, my call was just trying to bring a laugh maybe at the end of the day. Well, I imagine because that guy in Las Vegas would probably like this too. I imagine you in the middle of your garden with, you say you like keyboard, and maybe that organ sound. Have you ever heard of John Lord?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
You remember John Lord? He was the keyboardist for Deep Purple and like Rainbow and stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, his sound is like, he's just amazing with his, or I think he is. And I thought, like that song Space Truckin'?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
And he, if you listen deep, yeah, you can hear his stuff. I don't know why I just imagined you in the middle of your garden playing just some John Lord. Maybe you can take the challenge.
Yeah, in all seriousness, there is evidence that that all living things can respond to musical notes. There's even some very specialized ranges and notes that supposedly bring on certain conditions in the human body and in plants. We've heard all kinds of stuff about playing classical music to your baby in the womb, and there is an interaction between sound and living things.
Are you planning on learning?
Well, let me ask
the
you
keyboard?
this. I've been saying it for about 40 years, and I haven't got around to it yet, so we'll see. I keep saying when I retire, but I'm not sure if I'll ever retire. Let's think about this. And Mike, I think you mentioned heavy metal, right?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah. Now, are there times where heavy metal is exactly what we want? Yeah, I would say yes. For me, heavy metal is stimulating. I feel more energy. I feel like I want to get up and do something, if just move, whatever. But also, if I were to listen to heavy metal too long, I would feel very stressed out. So there's two totally different reactions, but it's a reaction to the sound itself. Now, I mentioned Yanni because Yanni, we'll go back to the caller with ADD in that conversation earlier, Yanni helps me focus. If I tried reading a book while I was playing heavy metal or any music with lyrics, I can't focus on the book. It's why I listen to Yanni or classical music, because there's no lyrics. So there's nothing distracting about the words, and the music is calming. It's not energizing. So I think a lot of us could probably have examples of how we use different kind of music to create different kind of emotions.
I'm in total agreement.
Good.
I don't know how this is going to affect tire wear.
Well, can I ask one question real quick?
Sure.
So, yeah, we have one hot hub on the trailer, 15, 20 degrees, and we did have a leaking wheel seal, and we replaced that and had new brakes put on because it was pretty gunked up in the inside, where you can't see it, on the other side. And so put it all back together, and it's still hot.
Did you replace the bearings in the races?
No.
No. Well, so the rolling components that were hot before are still the same rolling components, and they're hot now.
Right, okay. And whoever we had do it, they had it all apart. You don't think they would have checked that?
They didn't find that it needed to be replaced, but your issue of it running hot wasn't visible.
And 15 degrees doesn't get me excited.
Right.
Right. So what about for, should we not worry about either then?
I would.
20 degrees? Oh, okay.
I would.
All right.
And as long as it stays there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In the hot sun, it was getting up to maybe 140 or something, but.
Yeah, you're still way down there. That's okay. No problem.
All right.
Thanks for the call. All right. Before I let you guys get on, I had a call earlier, and he might call back. He was asking about wheel.
If he tells us he called earlier and talked to you, we'll hang up on him.
Okay, good.
There we go.
Good. Then we won't have any conflicts. All right.
That's right.
Well, he asked about wheel bearing adjustment, and we used to talk about this all the time. I can't count how many times I've heard the two of you explain wheel bearing adjustment. I went completely blank. He's talking about lock nuts, and I'm like, none of this is coming back to me because we hardly ever talk about this anymore. So I told him to call you, but one of the things that I've kind of just defaulted to is Dr. Preload.
That is a simple, very precise adjustment. And for people who either have the equipment or want to invest in the equipment, it's a great idea. I have no problem with that at all.
Do you know how much they are?
For people who don't have the equipment and want to adjust it, I can tell them the torque settings to set it to. Good.
Because that's what I couldn't remember any of that stuff. I used to know all that.
You're getting old.
I know. Something's going on. Maybe I'm listening to the wrong music.
That's it.
That's it.
You need to get heavy metal.
There you go. All right. I am going to let you guys get on with your show. Thank you, as always, for everything you do for us.
Anytime, buddy. Thank you for what you do.
All right. Take care. Be safe. Be profitable. Be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.